Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Echo of Soul livestream. I'm CM Chris. Joining me today is GM Arden.
Hello.
Our resident expert on everything Echo of Soul, and Klaus, the head of product management, who's overseeing the team bringing EOS to the West.
Hi guys.
We've got a ton of content we're really excited to show today. We'll be giving you a first look at the game launching on May 4th. And shortly around then, we'll be sending out the first wave of beta keys. If you're feeling a little impatient, you can become a founder. Founders will have secured their spot in the beta, alongside getting some exclusive goodies. So we have a ton to get through today, and we'll be starting off in character creation before clearing the opening section of the game. We'll do some QA with Klaus in the QA corner, and we'll be running a dungeon. So without further ado, we're about to crack on. Klaus, we'll join you in a bit.
Cool.
And John, why don't you start telling me about the classes?
All right, Chris, we're going to jump straight into character creation by way of stopping it by the class selection. So first up, my first choice, the first character I played in Echo of Soul, maybe it will always be my favorite, is the warrior. Simply amazing looking. He is as tanky as he seems. As you can tell from the size of his weapon, he is a melee frontline fighter. Now, something we'll see across the classes, broadly speaking, there are two specializations you can dive into. The warrior's attribute is rage, and he will use that to either become an attack-fueled berserker or a more defensive protector. With the berserker skill line, you're going to be using that rage aspect to link together attacks to continually output damage, sustaining it over time. Or else with the protector, you've got more of the traditional MMO hard tanking ability. He's got a lot of self-protecting skills. He's got shields. He's got your pulls, your taunts, that sort of thing. So it's going to be interesting to see how either of these will be used, what sort of specializations people are going to build out into. Second up, which happened to be my second choice as well as going through character selection.
Were you just going from left to right?
I was just going from left to right, Chris, yeah. I picked a rogue despite the fact that I wasn't traditionally born to a sort of squishy, high damage output thief class, if you will. But I was really interested in the two specializations offered by the rogue. Building out into either a duelist class, where you're going to be chaining attacks, moving from enemy to enemy, trying to burst down the enemies to ensure that you take them out before moving on. You can either take that route, or you can become an assassin. Assassin's one of the higher difficulty classes, if I could say that, in the game, where he'll be putting down a lot of status effects, a lot of dots, a lot of really damaging skills to put on your enemies, but something that's going to require a lot of expertise on your behalf to make it work really effectively. It's an interesting class. Like I said, it wasn't one I thought I'd be drawn to.
But one that you quickly find...
Yeah, I'm maining a rogue now, to be honest, yeah.
So, personally myself, I was playing the Elven classes. The first one I played was the Guardian. So Guardians take on this sort of traditional melee AoE role. So their kind of pathways are based on the elements.
Okay.
So a Storm Guard has these huge damaging lightning imbued attacks that have wide AoEs and deal a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Alternatively, and my favorite path, is the Earth Guard, because the Earth Guard has, they say it works as an off-tank because of the high evasion stat.
Yeah.
But it basically means that you can tank a lot of the damage and you can pull a lot of the aggro. But most interestingly down the Earth Guard path is there are a lot of spells like when you're choosing your options.
Yeah.
There's one that says, okay, I'm going to pull all of the enemies towards me and take all the enemies. Alternatively, in that same sort of like, around that same sort of level, you have the option to say, okay, I want to give my allies a buff and I want to protect my allies.
Yeah.
So the Earth Guard not only tanks in itself, but also helps the survivability of the party.
So it's a tank, support, group defender. It's a class that has a lot on offer, you're saying?
That's the thing. You can take both paths in general. So I could have Storm Guard as a main and then switch to Earth Guard when I need to tank. But for me personally, I want to take Earth Guard twice. And I want to have my supportive tank and my just controls the aggro tank and dictates the pace of this boss battle tank. Which gives you the idea that it could be an off-tank, it could be a secondary defender, but I know that I'm going to be taking it into raids and playing it as the main tank because I love being that sort of like that guy who's like, you know, come on guys, this was, you know.
There's such a diversity of builds you can pull off within each specialization, not to mind the fact that you get different specializations to go into. The Sorceress now, at first glance, would seem to be more of a classic MMO caster archetype. It's not as straightforward as that, of course. The Sorceress will be working with fire marks or ice marks.
And the fire marks have these, like, the heavy damage spells. They have damage over times because fire burns, you know?
Burns.
Whereas if you go down the ice mage path, your damage is reduced, not a huge amount.
Yeah.
But instead you pick up these CCs and these crowd control effects. So your ice bolt will slow enemies coming towards you and buy you that couple of extra seconds you need.
Yeah.
You have an ability that roots enemies in place. So if you've taken aggro, you can lock them down until someone takes it off you.
Yeah.
And it gives you a lot more of different styles in how you play, especially in like PvE and PvP.
Yeah, and we've seen something else you pointed out with the Sorceresses. They'll have skills not just to affect the enemy, but also to take themselves out of battle, like something that will give you a knockback to take you out of range. If you're playing something like a Sorceress or a Rogue, you're going to have to be aware of what the enemy is doing and not just sit there and get eaten alive. You'll need to be moving away, you'll need to be responding to skills, as we'll see in a bit more detail later on.
Some of the squishier classes have this idea that they can almost get out of jail free by using these abilities. But your melee classes, like your Guardian and like your Warrior, they will be on the pursuit and forcing you to come to them. I've seen in PvP, I've been grabbed as an archer by Guardians too many times to completely wipe them off. So they've got these movement spells, but there are also people hunting you down and chasing you out.
So you said you'd played Archer?
Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of the Archer because it's one of the most interesting paths to me and one of the most interesting characters to me. So if you're going down the damage route, you can become a Huntress. Yeah. Huntresses, they have these sort of like these masteries that either deal in quick damage so that you're firing a lot of arrows at once, which admittedly looks crazy awesome. So there are times when you're like, you leap back and you fire arrows as you go, and then you suddenly fire another volley of arrows. And the game mode itself is alive in particle effects because there are so many arrows in the air. But it also has these like sniper shots, so you're like, and these even have their own animations as well. So it locks onto you, and then it gets really like deep down. It's almost like there's a laser target, and it's, you know, it's two paths down the same
within Huntress
tree.
You can become something rapid fire, almost area of effect, or you can become something single target, high damage, sniper archer.
Sniper archers, the sniper class. And most interestingly to me is the Bard, because Echo of Soul got rid of the traditional healer role. Right. And while there are the ability to heal with bandages and scrolls, we'll talk about that much, much later. You have these classes that specialize in supporting your teammates. So whereas the Earth Guard in particular down the Guardian tree has these options where you can support your team, the Bard is all about exactly that. It's a class entirely devoted to buffing your allies and weakening your enemies. So it's less of a case of I'm just healing the tank while we win the fight, and it's more of a case of he's using a really powerful spell now, and now is the time that I'm going to weaken his attack, to reduce his strength. He's gone into a really tough mode, then I'll be using my abilities to make sure that we're going to survive this fight.
You're going to keep an eye on your own cooldowns, you're going to keep an eye on enemy skills. You can't, even as a bard, you can't just spam support, you need to be intelligently working this.
It's when they have these little difficulty marks, and they're just rough guidelines, because honestly, the difficulty of the Bard will separate the good bards from the great bards. The great and it's the same for anything. You know, like you say, when you're talking about your rogues as your assassins, then that they will have their exceedingly well played characters, but at the same time, just because it's more difficult does not mean that an amazing duelist will lose out.
No, absolutely. It's going to come down to player skill. As we'll see, even in the brief amount of time we get to play today, the game's going to guide you towards finding out how you want to play for yourself. So I think we're going to see some really interesting outcomes. We're going to see people like, I didn't believe I would end up maining a rogue in this game. So what's it to be, Chris?
Go for Guardian, because left to right, you're in the middle.
Oh yes, okay. I'm working my way numerically through the classes. So we have arrived at the MMO staple, the character customization screen, Chris. We've got a lot of options unique to each of the classes, so you're not going to see a sorceress's hairdo copy-pasted across onto a guardian.
And definitely not onto a warrior.
No, unfortunately not yet onto a warrior. We're going to see the hairstyles at first. They're ranging from the very glamorous, the very beautiful and hair flicky, to something a little tidier, maybe more battle appropriate, to something frankly...
It's completely inappropriate for combat.
She has a sense, Chris. She can see. She'll be fine. We're going to take something a little more normal, if we can call it that. I do quite like that too. And of course, you can cycle it through any number of slightly natural, beautiful ginger to outlandish green and everything in between. We're going to settle on something a little more human, perhaps. Moving swiftly on.
There's a number of different facial constructs as well. So you can choose between these kind of more blank or more stern, traditionally elven sort of faces, these cartoonish kind of gazes to just... She was a little bit angry, man.
She was a little bit angry.
She was a little bit angry. To these very soft faces.
Yeah.
You can also choose a variety of different presets for skin color.
Right.
So you have some more traditional skin colors.
Yeah.
And some just absolute... You made Smurfette.
That
is Smurfette.
We made a Smurfette. Let's roll Smurfette.
Some very outlandish and different kind of color styles.
Yeah.
Depending on what you personally want to play.
Yeah, exactly. In addition to this, as we were saying, each of the presets, they're class specific, so you're not going to get them copy-pasted across. Each of the eye selections are the same deal. We're moving from something quite human away to something a little bit more elven, something a bit cat-like, that's kind of cool, to something terrifying.
Absolutely demonic.
Beautiful in its own way. We're maybe not going to roll something as scary for this view because we don't want to scare away our Twitch viewers. So we're going to settle on something slightly more humane for the eye selection. Another aspect of customization, the one that's unique to the class, again, they're the tattoos.
So again, a lot of these are personally class specific. So you won't find these very scary vampire kind of eyes.
Beautiful.
Or the vampire lips on the sorceress, for example.
No, exactly. They're going to have a different set of tattoos that are sort of thematically assigned to that class.
Like being in the Kiss Army.
Like being in the Kiss Army. Who wouldn't?
So something to walk away from this if you're into numbers, and because there are concerns about customization and stuff like that, is we did some number work, and I hate numbers, so you're welcome for this. There are 157 million possible combinations if you roll something completely different time and time again.
Yeah.
So assuming that people don't mind rolling Smurfette, and I'm sure they don't.
I want to roll the first Smurfette.
Lock the name in now.
Yeah.
Secure your name for CBT. So again, provided you don't mind rolling Smurfette, you have these options, and it would take over 157 million players before you came across someone who looks like you.
Yeah.
And that's before you even start talking about sliders.
Yeah, of course we've got sliders. The way you'll arrive at your perfect chosen body proportions in Echo of Soul, it's by, you can scale up the entire body size together and then increase or reduce the leg proportion. So you're going from something slightly more dwarven or gnome-like to something slightly more elven and graceful and leggy. And of course, where would you be in an MMO without the option to do
big head mode?
Big head mode. Big head mode versus little head mode, depending on what it is that your preference is. We're going to go with middle of the road because we don't want to freak too many people out, but you have the option to freak people out if that's what you would prefer to do.
So that's your locked-in customization, and that's your character.
Yeah.
Something nice about the Echo of Souls character creation is you can get a look at some of the outfits and costumes that'll be available throughout your journey and that you'll collect while playing. Yeah,
exactly. A lot of the gear you pick up in game looks pretty amazing itself, but if you want the option to increase your customization, a purely aesthetic addition is the use of a costume. Now, these vary across the classes. You're going to have a lot of cool stuff we have already got in-game. We've got more stuff coming after launch. In addition to the costumes themselves, you can also layer up with accessories. Again, these are purely if you just want an extra layer of customization, in addition to everything else we've already talked about, Chris. We've got some beautiful headgear on display here.
And some serious pirate hats.
But
wearing the gear also alters your character because you've got hat hair.
We have got hat hair. As you'll see, we go from the beautiful bouffant we picked out earlier on to something that will fit kindly under the hat. But let's let the hair be free for now. The other type of accessory that's available in game, the one that's unique to each class, is there's an accessory that is class specific. So in the instance of the Guardian here, we have wings. You're not going to see a rogue or a sorceress rocking the wings. This is something that's only available for a Guardian. So the warrior has a Herculean sort of cape, the rogue is rocking a stylish scarf, and so on and so on.
It's basically like a giant come find me in PvP. Like, I have these big wings, guys, I'm right here.
Look at me, we've managed to create a Valkyrie. Spectacular. But let's not draw a huge amount of attention to ourselves at the start of the game, and let's rock on. Let's see if somebody has taken the name Chris. Name is available, Chris. Awesome.
I was taking all the anime names for beta test. There will be no Asunas or Kiritos when I'm done. They're all mine.
So we're about to see the introduction video, the story video.
Yeah, so we're about to dive into the story video. And that's something that basically frames your entire performance and history in Echo of Soul.
Yeah.
And it's the reason behind all of your actions.
Yeah.
So that, and I'm sure that some of you have seen it before, but it was actually one of the first videos we released, so maybe it might be new to some of you guys.
Yeah, cool.
And let's dive into it.
Okay.
In the beginning, there was the war of the creators, gods and giants, ancient beings bound by blood and hate, fought for supremacy. The immortals fought with such brutality that the world was nearly torn apart. In the end, the giants succumbed to the gods and the world was soiled with their blood, threatening to corrupt the world tree, source of all creation. To prevent the unthinkable, the goddess Frigg was forced to fuse her spirit with that of the world tree. Despite her sacrifice, an evil force emerged, determined to exact revenge and destroy all forms of life. You have been chosen by the gods to be their soul keeper. The future of the world rests on your shoulders. Are you ready to meet your destiny?
Okay, so we're rejoining ourselves in Brea Town, which is currently under attack by the Darklift forces.
As we can see.
We've been tasked with finding out what's going on and sort of just filling their numbers.
Yeah.
So hopefully what you took away from the story trailer and this battle between the gods and the giants.
The gigantometry, Chris.
the gigantometry.
Yeah, close enough.
Close enough?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get it. We've popped our first achievement.
We're going to come back to achievements a little later on when we're not busily taking down Darklift.
Busy taking down the Darklift. But the thing you can take away from the story trailer and the, whatever it was, the gigantometry?
Yeah.
I'm so done. Is the actions that you take in Echo of Soul are based off of this.
Yeah.
So the aftermath of this battle between the gods and the giants is something that's going to play out in Echo of Soul.
Yeah, it's a lot of what underlies the motivations of the Soul Keeper. It's the rooting, it's the grounding of the whole story.
And you just picked up your first level up, man.
We
Congrats.
did level up. Hooah!
GZ.
We've also picked up our first couple of pieces of gear. We're going to be keeping an eye on that as we get some slightly cooler gear as we go along.
Okay, so I think the first things we have is the town's under attack by the Darklift. We've thinned their numbers a little bit, but they need some support from our end to help keep the battle going. You know, these defenders are taking a bit of a beating, so we could do with some medicinal herbs.
Yeah, we're going to pick up a few herbs that will allow them to make remedies that will take back the wounded from their state.
And there are a lot of residents that have been captured.
Yeah, as we can see here, quite a few have been captured. We're going to do our little bit in rescuing them.
Just give us 1 second, guys. Check the sound settings for us.
Cool.
Settings. Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't forget that towards the end of this section, we'll have a chat with Klaus in the QA corner. So use the hashtag EOS Live, send us your questions, and you might possibly end up being a founder at the end of this.
Oh yeah.
So okay, back into where back into a game with sound, thankfully.
Yes.
Which is a start.
So we've collected a few herbs. We've rescued a portion of the Brain residents. Not all of them, unfortunately.
I think we have a lot on our plate,
Yeah.
and there are going to be a lot of soul keepers coming in through the door, and a lot of competition to save the residents. So right now it's okay, we're doing good. But later on, yeah, I can understand that right now we apologize to the rest of the residents.
Somebody will be along in good time to save you, sirs and madams.
We'll save you on an alternate character, I promise.
So amongst all of that, Chris, we popped another level up and we got the first new skill on our bar. We're going to see a little later on, as we add a few more skills, how you'll begin to specialize, how you'll start to find out for yourself what sort of skill layout you'll want to go for.
So we've held the Darkcliff at bay,
Yeah.
and that's the first step, But the best defense is offense, and we know that there is a boss and a lord of these Darkcliff
Yeah.
that is attacking an altar.
Yeah.
What we don't know is why, and we want to find out.
Okay.
But he's protected by a barrier,
Yes.
which Lavina was kind enough to tell us about. But we're skipping the quest logs because
Yes. No spoilers, guys.
no spoilers.
Not too much spoilers.
Other than what we tell you.
Yes.
And we need to break that barrier.
Yeah.
And to do that, we need the help of the local wood nymphs.
Yep.
But they have problems of their own.
Yes, so the wood nymphs in their crystal forest will be able to supply us with a piece of pellucid crystal, which will allow Lavina to imbue it with some of her power, allow us in turn to take down that barrier. But we are going to need to help them out with their Darkcliff problem to get a little help from them in return.
Darkcliff. Darkcliff everywhere.
Oh.
So, what I know from playing the Guardian myself is that your attacks are building your vitality gauge.
Yeah, you see this on the right here at the bottom, Chris.
And certain attacks are builders,
Yep.
so they don't cost vitality, but they build it.
Exactly.
And then you use that build-up vitality for more powerful and special attacks.
Right, exactly. You can see, as I said earlier on, I ran Warrior myself. Now, the Warrior is superficially similar in that he's a builder. He needs to build up his attribute before he can make attacks. But the subtle but crucial distinction here is that the Warrior benefits from both from making attacks and from being attacked. So you would play a Warrior, no matter how you build him, you would play him differently from a Guardian, because it's almost in a Warrior's best interest to pull more aggro. He'll then generate more rage, which he can turn into further attacks.
I'm not going to argue with you about the best tank class, John. Not again.
We shall see.
We will agree to disagree.
Yeah.
And maybe leave it up to the players when they
Yeah, we can
when
face
they join
off
it.
someday, Chris. We will both lead a team of soul keepers upon the plains of Valhalla.
PvP.
Yeah, man. So we've fetched our crystal. We're on our way back to Lavina for it to be imbued with said power, and hopefully be able to make a difference.
So this level up's pretty special
Yeah.
because you pick up 2 new skills.
Yeah.
And one of them is really, really useful for making use of your vitality.
That's right.
So we unlocked an execute, which when an enemy drops below 50% HP,
Yeah.
you can expend all of the vitality in your gauge, a sort of like all or nothing kind of assault to finish
Yeah.
off an enemy.
Yeah, exactly.
The alternate path we picked up is the Earth and Wrath, which is an AoE. So it's an AoE dot.
Yeah.
So if we're pulling a lot of aggro and we have a lot of mobs around us,
Yeah.
pop your Earth and Wrath. You'll see a small indicator on the ground, which will show you where it is, and the enemies around you will be taking damage.
Yeah. So as I hinted before, you're starting to see how you diversify your build. You'll start to see how you might want to make that choice when you hit level 10 of what specialization you'll go into. So as you introduced, we've got 2 skills here. One's a really high damage single target execute. The other's a lower damage but a constant damage and a constant damage over time over an area of effect. So as you play, you'll start to see more and more for yourself what sort of path you might like to choose.
Which I think is something really interesting because a lot of the skills that go into the mastery tree that we'll take a brief look at later on are built off the skills you're getting now.
Yeah.
So while the rogue in particular, like you said, picks up a lot of skills that take them down this sort of like assassin or duelist path, for the guardian, you can see that some of your attacks specialize in damage.
Yeah.
And that your other attacks take that sort of more earth-focused, defensive kind of keeping aggro role.
Yeah, it's a common theme across the classes that you'll start to build up skills before level 10 that will give you an idea of how you're going to build yourself out.
There are a lot. I mean, it's good we've got some new Soul Keepers coming in,
Yeah.
because some of these guys didn't make it.
We're going to need some new Soul Keepers. We're almost there, Chris.
So again, we've reached the altar, and you can see that Diamond is behind this barrier. And this is our first sort of like mini boss encounter.
Yeah.
So I say dive in, and
Okay.
let's just fight him.
Okay, here goes. Yikes. Chivo.
Again, more achievements.
More
but right now we
achievements.
have boss dropping, so focus.
It's on.
So again, we're Levinus here to back us up,
Yeah.
and we're about to take on Diamond. He's being held at bay right now, but
We need to
We have
end
to
this,
turn
Chris.
this fight.
Yeah, let's get stuck in. Boom.
and again, something that you'll notice about
Yeah.
something you're looking pretty swish.
Thank you.
Oh god,
Whoa.
this isn't even his final form, John.
Yeah.
Just run.
Just run.
No, it's okay. You can fight him. Trust me. You
get
can
him,
fight him.
get
You can
him.
fight him. Okay. Something you'll notice about the bosses in particular, less so the first boss of the game, but
Yeah.
in particular when we start running the dungeon later on,
Woo.
is you'll need to be using your abilities, your gap closers, your move makers,
Yeah.
to their best effect to avoid AoEs and to make sure that you're taking as little damage as possible.
Yeah, we saw there really briefly that there's a dodge roll. There's a different sort of evasive skill available for each of the classes. So whether you're an archer or a rogue or even a warrior, you're going to want to be aware that you can get out of the way of damage if you're paying attention enough. You don't need to take silly damage. You can fight intelligently.
So I think we found a point where we can just sit down and look at the achievements. Like, relax. We finished Echo of Soul. No. There is a lot more to go. Just kidding. This is the first mini boss.
Yeah.
So we can finally have a look at the achievement menu.
Yeah, so we were popping a lot of the smaller achievements just straight away as we went, but seeing as we just saved Breetown for now, we got a Valor reward, we got a story-related achievement, and that's going to introduce us to the huge breadth of achievements that is available in Echo of Soul. There's something here for everyone, really. If you're a PvE monster slayer, then you get something going from 100 monsters up to the frankly terrifying 100,000 monsters achievement. Again, as I said, there's something for everyone here. If you want to specialize in dungeon running, you'll get achievements from the very low to the very difficult to accomplish. You'll be seeing achievements for all of the crafting roles that we're going to introduce briefly later on as well. There's some really interesting ones. There's some really
So again, there's achievements for pretty much everything, depending on your personal play style and how you're taking the game.
Yeah.
So if you die, like it happens to all of us,
when you
okay? When you die, you'll get an achievement for that. It's just that sort of like jokey, the go into the light achievement that that just reminds you that you're fragile occasionally.
Happens.
You know.
I would like to see how long someone can avoid getting the go into the light achievement.
I'd like to see someone clear the toughest dungeons without seeing the go into the light
Yeah,
achievement.
if we can see that, did we see both of those achievements on one character? Wow.
No, one of the achievements and not the other achievement.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so the current state of things, we've just beaten Diamond.
Yeah.
And we need to find out why he was here. Like, it's not just that he's here, we want to know why.
The game is not over yet.
To do so, we need you to go through and loot the corpses of some Darkleth, which is a bit of a messy job.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take a bit of a QA break.
Okay.
And we'll talk about some of those questions we've had with Klaus.
Awesome.
And we'll rejoin you in a moment.
Okay, I'm going to loot said corpses, Chris.
Don't lose anything. How's it going, Klaus?
Pretty good.
Are you-
Looking awesome.
Are you enjoying the game so far?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, so we'll leap in with some of the questions we've had from the audience.
Sure.
And one of the first ones that has come up is, how did Aria and us ourselves reach the point where we're publishing Echo of Soul?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, basically, what you have to know is that most people at Area are like passionate gamers themselves. Myself, of course, John over there, obviously, he's doing that job. And
Not
so
me. I see.
we're looking.
I see how it is, not me.
Well, you're getting there. For sure. And so we're always on the lookout for great games. And Echo of Soul was really, popular in Korea and then got published in China and Thailand. So it popped up on our radar, and we wanted to take a closer look, and found it was, an awesome game. So we put everything in motion to get that game to the West, and lucky for us, EOS took us on. They're our developer, and so here we are.
And that's the point we're at now. So you mentioned Envious, the developers. So who are they? Like, tell us a little more than just the developer.
Yeah, the developer.
The developer.
Envious is interesting because the guys working there that basically founded that studio are people that worked on Lineage and Lineage 2, and they recruited a lot of really good talent to the cause, and I met the guys when I was in Korea. Dedicated team, great people, so pretty much shows in the game, for sure.
That's absolutely amazing. So the game launched in Thailand, and it launched in China, and is that the same version we're showing here?
Well, yeah, obviously, I mean, the game's a great game, so we kept the core game as it is. What we did do is we added, of course, localization, and we took great care to have cool voiceovers for the entire game in the different languages that we're going to launch. And we made some small tweaks to the mechanics that you might be able to see later on. And yeah, we're also going to take care that we start with a good community focus, so we're going to try to add some fun with a lot of events and things like that. So it's going to be the same, but different and a lot of fun.
So I'm sure you'll love this question, and it nearly always comes up, but is this game going to be a pay-to-win MMO?
Oh, man. I get that question a lot. My personal answer to that is a clear no. I can kind of understand how people come across this with free-to-play having suffered this kind of bad reputation. At the same time, there are a couple of great examples out there of games that are free-to-play, not pay-to-win, and that's where we pretty much draw our examples from. And so we took great care that we figured out how to, have some quest rewards that would drop cash items, some collectibles, and just spread them throughout the game so that especially free players early on would find, a pleasant surprise that they say, hey, cool, this is a really good start. So that's what we're aiming for.
That's fantastic. So we got a couple of other quick questions. So I feel like I know this one, but will the game support other languages than English?
Yeah, as I just said, we're launching in multiple languages, so it's going to be French, German, and English to begin with.
And in the past, we've had games where, like Ore Kingdom, which was later published in other languages. So there's possibilities in the future that if Echo of Souls sees success, that's a tongue twister for you, that we might even see it in other languages.
Yeah, we're definitely keeping our options open there, for sure.
So a couple of quick last ones before we finish this one is, how many servers will there be?
Well, we're going to start off with 6 servers, and then, as people crowd in, we can always add more if we have to. I'd be happy to see that for sure.
Again, another one we've discussed already. So when can we play the game?
Yeah, like you mentioned in the beginning, beta starts May the 4th, and we'll start sending out beta keys from there. So everybody who's signed up definitely has the chance to get in. We'll be doing several waves because obviously we need to make sure everything's running smoothly. And if you're more on the impatient side, obviously you can also become a founder right now. Some cool stuff there, and guaranteed access for sure.
So I'm going to leap back to John for now because I need to level up my gamer score so that you'll respect me a little more when I come back.
Okay.
But if you have any more questions for Klaus or John, give us the hashtag EOS Live, and we'll make sure we get around to them.
Sounds great.
Okay, I'll see you in a bit.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
And try not to drop anything this time.
That'll be fine.
I can do this. Welcome back. It's nice to see you again, John. Did you miss me?
I did. I've been busy, I'm afraid, Chris. There's still a lot going on here. We're learning from Lavina a little bit more of the backstory of the historical events you were introduced to in the intro movie. We're going to start to learn about the motivations of Soul Keepers, what has happened in the world here, and what we can do to help.
So, again, the Soul Keepers are influenced by the history and this battle between the gods and the giants. We've said it many times because
It's important.
It influences pretty much everything.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
we have to say it a lot.
Yeah.
But there's this corruption that spread from the blood of Ymir.
That's right. When Ymir was killed, as you saw in the intro, his blood spilled upon the land. It caused a sort of roaming corruption. And now we see that some of the gentle forest spirits have been corrupted. So Lavina has tasked us twofold. She's asked us to put some of these poor spirits out of their misery so they might find peace, and also to begin our first steps to becoming a fledgling soul keeper.
So I'm just saying that those non-corrupted spirits were actually ganging up on
They
that
were,
one
I saw
corrupted
that
spirit.
actually.
I'm not sure that's fair. Like, Joe's between Earth spirits, man.
Yeah, life is hard sometimes. So if you keep an eye on when we're dispatching these mobs and monsters, you'll see a little something pop when I do manage to dispatch them. When I do and don't wipe, boom.
Just a soul.
Just a soul. Just not any ordinary soul, Chris, a chaos soul. A symptom of the corruption, this historic contamination that resulted from Ymir's death, and something that we as soul keepers are tasked with tackling and resolving.
So that sort of feeds into one of the key systems we're going to be introduced to.
Yeah.
And we'll quickly talk to Lavina because she's going to really kick us off on it.
Yeah, she's introducing us to our soul keeper training. So as discussed, we're going to be introduced to the soul system. This is the soul in Echo of Soul. So as you can imagine, it's fairly key. When we
get past the tutorial.
when we get past the tutorial and perform our own tutorial, when you gain these chaos souls from the vanquished corrupted spirits, there's a way you can put them to use. Now, first of all, for soul purification, you will need to be in the vague proximity of a soul sanctum, such as this one. You'll see these dotted all over the world, from the biggest towns to the smallest sleepy hollows. You'll be able to find one. When you're standing in proximity to one, you simply open your soul satchel, you observe your number of contaminated souls, and then
You purify.
boom, Chivo.
So that's our first purification. And you can see right off the bat that our souls have been purified into 4 states.
Yeah.
So again, if you think that like each soul has its unique attribute, say maybe I'm a little more hopeful than you, and you're a little more innocent than me.
Oh,
were we corrupted by the blood of Ymir and our souls were purified? I turn into a soul of hope, and you turn into a soul of innocence.
Yeah, so moving swiftly on, we'll come back later on. We're going to see a few of the systems whereby the purified souls can be used to the benefit of a soul keeper. There's just a couple of points we're going to cover before we move on.
And what I was saying with that was it's random.
Yeah, it's random, not a personal comment.
So again, there's benefits to purifying souls at the best opportunities.
Yeah.
So pretty much if you come across a soul sanctum, you want to be purifying your soul.
There's no reason you wouldn't, I suppose.
Partly because you can hold more purified souls than you can chaos souls.
Absolutely. You have a capacity for 4,000 purified souls, whereas your capacity for the more volatile chaos souls, it's down at 275. So you're going to be missing out on, as we'll show you the benefits later on,